Right, here we go. Okay, everybody, welcome to Arba Kosos. Amid Yomi, Hashem. We're going to do that. We'll learn the Amid first, and then we'll speak out some Yesodis on the Amid. So here we go. The Mishnah begins. Erev Pesachim, Samach Lemincha. On Erev Pesach, Erev Pesachim. It's a funny word. The parak is called Arba Pesachim, but the Mishnah begins Erev Pesachim, on Erev of Pesachs. We'll see Tosis when we come back to this. Erev Pesachim. Samach Lemincha, when it gets close to Mincha time, Rashbam says that means Samach Lemincha Hitana, and that is, Samach, he says, means a half hour before Mincha Hitana. Lo yoichal adam, a person shouldn't eat ad shetachshach, until it gets dark. What can't you eat? We'll discuss. But you can't eat until it gets dark, until a Seder. That's halacha number one. That's a halacha for Erev Pesach. Now we move on. Afilu anisha b'Yisrael, even a poor person, lo yoichal, he can't eat ad sheyasev, until he does heseba. And this is a second halacha, which is the mitzvah of heseba by the Seder, is taught in this very funny way. Doesn't just say that you have to lean when you eat. It says even an ani has to do a seba while eating. And they should not give him less. This is referring to the Gabbai Tzedakah. Should not give an ani less than 4 kaises of yayin. Afilu min hatamchoy. Even if he's a guy who eats from the tamchoy, that means he really does not have much money. Even he must be given Arba Kosos to make sure he can fulfill his mitzvah. And the Rashbam says it's not only the Gabbai Tzedakah. That's just saying that's the way it usually was. Someone who didn't have money, he went to the Gabbai Tzedakah. But even if there's no Gabbai Tzedakah around, and it's up to you, every person must procure for himself Arba Kosos, even if it means him selling the shirt off of his back to get Daled Kosos. And this is more Chamra, mitzvahs you only have to spend up to a Chaimish. Here, being that it's a halacha of Persume Nisa, you have to spend more. So you have to be willing to spend whatever you got to fulfill the mitzvah of Arba Kosos, which is fascinating because this is just the mitzvah d'Rabbanan, Arba Kosos. I don't know if you'd have to do that for matzah even. I don't know if you have to sell everything for matzah. You have to sell the shirt off your back for matzah. I don't think so. But for Daled Kosos, you have to sell the shirt off your back. All right. Yeah, we'll discuss. Good diak. The sounds like it's only for him. They have to give him. We'll discuss. Taisus is going to discuss what about his family. Do they need Arba Kosos? We'll discuss that. We'll come back to it. We're going to go through the Amid and then we'll go back and see the Taisus on it. That's the plan. All right. So these are the three halachas that are Mishnah. Number one, you can't eat on Erev Pesach. Number two, you have to do Heseba. And number three, you need Daled Kosos. Back to Gemara. My area Arba Pesachim. Why is the Mishnah harping on Erev Pesach, this halacha that you can't eat on Erev Pesach? This is not just an Erev Pesach halacha. This is a halacha that pertains to every Erev Shabbos and every Yom Tov. Afilu Arba Shabbos Yom Tovim Nami. On every Erev Shabbos and Yom Tov, there's this halacha of lo yoichal. The Tanya, like we learned in a brayso, lo yoichal adam Arba Shabbos Yom Tovim min hamencha u'lamahala. This is halacha for every week. Every Erev Shabbos, every Erev Yom Tov, you're not supposed to eat from mincha onwards in order Kedei sheyikonis l'Shabbos kishut haiva, in order that you come into Shabbos with an appetite. So this is not a halacha that's specific to Erev Pesach. So good ha'ara, good point. L'maisa, we're just talking about Pesach. This is Mesachos Pesachim. We haven't found this halacha though in Shabbos. We don't find it in Beya. We would expect if this is the only time this Mishnah is going to be recorded and it applies everywhere, so you got to make such a comment. You got to make a mention of that. So you're correct. It is, we are in Pesachim, but being that it's not recorded in other, it should, if this would have been recorded in Shabbos, and a Mishnah in Shabbos, and a Mishnah in Beya, that's the, why wouldn't it be? if it applied everywhere. That's the kasha. Meaning you're making it sound like this is an Erev Pesach Dika Halacha. There's a brayso that says it's not only for Erev Pesach. Correct. So you should have this good kasha. Why doesn't Rebbe mention this halacha? That's really the kasha the Gemara is asking. That's the diak that the Gemara. It seems like this has to do something specific with Pesach. From the fact that it's only mentioned here, the kasha isn't this apply everywhere? I mean, why did Rebbe only teach it here? Good. Says the Gemara, Divi Rebbe Yehuda. This that it's an Erev Shabbos Dika Halacha, an Erev Pesach, Erev Yom Tov Dika Halacha. This is the opinion of Rebbe Yehuda. Rebbe Yosi Aimer, Oichel v'hoilech ad shetechshach. You can continue eating on Erev Shabbos and Erev Yom Tov until it gets dark. Oh, so says the Gemara, Amar Rav Huna, you're right. Loitzricha el Rebbe Yosi. This Mishnah is taka only going according to Rebbe Yosi. The Amar Oichel v'hoilech ad shetechshach. This is Rabbi Yosi who holds on every Erev Shabbos and Erev Yom Tov you're allowed to eat until it gets dark. Hani Mili, when does Rabbi Yosi say you can eat an Erev, you're allowed to continue eating until it gets dark? That's Ba'ari Shabbos v'Yomim Tovim. That's weekly on an Erev Yom Tov. Aval B'Erev Pesach. But when it comes to Pesach, then you got to stop. You can't eat on Erev Shabbos. You can't eat on Erev Pesach. Why? Mishum chiyuv de matzah. Moida, because of there's an obligation to eat matzah on Pesach night. So even Rabbi Yosi would agree that you were going to have to start. You can't eat on Erev Pesach. So this Rav Huna's teretz is correct. This Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Yosi, and according to Rabbi Yosi, this taka halach you're only on Erev Shabbos Yom Tov eat to your heart consent. But when it comes to Erev Pesach, there's a chiyuv of matzah. Now you got to stop. You can't eat on Erev Pesach because we want you to be able to eat the matzah. Now, what's Sakib Shad in Rabbi Yosi? What is it? You're right. There's a chiyuv of matzah on Pesach, but isn't there a chiyuv of kiddush? Isn't there a chiyuv of Seder Shabbos on every Shabbos? So why does he differentiate between matzah and Seder Shabbos? Oh, one teretz would be that it is it's because of it's a deraisa. Matzah is deraisa. Kiddush is also deraisa, but he doesn't talk. Kiddush maybe I guess you don't need too much to drink. And the Sudas Yantiv, Shudas Shabbos is only a mitzvah derabanan. Okay, one teretz, good answer. What's that? Oh, why doesn't he mention the Korban Pesach? Why doesn't Rabbi Yosi mention the Korban Pesach? That's a Shaka Kasha. Why does he? He only harps on Chiyuv de Matzah. So maybe you'll say that he's only talking about, I don't know, maybe he taught this, the Mishnah was taught after the Churban. I don't know. This is a halacha. Well, maybe we'll have to see through the Gemara Pesachim which Mahrsha we have in here. If it mentions Pesach, so that wouldn't go, I don't remember what it is. Pesach definitely seems to hold like we're talking about Pesach, because as I mentioned before, he says Erev Pesachim. Why doesn't it say Arba Pesachim? So one teretz he gives is because it means Erev Pesach Rishon and Erev Pesach Sheni. So he seems to be holding that it's like a Korban Pesach the halacha. But you could just say because the Korban Pesach was eaten al hasoiva anyway. You ate the Korban Pesach at the end of the Suda. So why are we concerned over here about what's the whole Indian? Why can't you eat on Erev Pesach because you have a chiyuv of matzah? So the Rashbam says a lashon. If you look at the last skinny line in the Rashbams, the Rashbam says the second to last skinny line, Lo yechel adam kedei sheyochel matzah shel mitzvah l'te'avain mishum hidur mitzvah. He says because you want to have an appetite for the matzah shel mitzvah, because there's an aspect of hidur mitzvah involved. Hidur mitzvah, fascinating comment of this Rashbam. There's a hidur mitzvah involved, meaning hidur mitzvah. Normally, we understand the mitzvah, hidur mitzvah of Zekei Livan Veyu. You got to buy a lulav na, you buy esrog na, mezuzah na, aksav na. is in the Hefta Shel Mitzvah, you need to have that the mitzvah is beautiful. There's a Hiddur mitzvah in the Hefta Shel Mitzvah. Here the Rashbam is saying that even in the act of in the act of the mitzvah, and there needs to be a Hiddur. And this would seem to be only on a mitzvah where the mitzvah is achila. When the mitzvah is achila, so then it's shaykh or passes to say that there's an inyan of hiddur mitzvah, that a way of beautifying the mitzvah achila would be to do it in an oifen, in a way that you're hungry, that you're still, have an appetite for it. Oh, that's a fascinating point. The Gemara actually says on Kov Zayin Amud Beis, the reason why you're not supposed to eat is so you shouldn't end up eating the mitzvah, the matzah, achilas gasa. The halach is an achila gasa is lo shmei achila. If a person does an achila gasa on Yom Kippur, he's not chayiv kares. If you ate a ganze erev Yom Kippur, right? You come to this after this sort of, and you're stuffed at the range, you can't even look at food, and it's disgusting to you, and you eat it on Yom Kippur, you wouldn't be chayiv kares. That's called achila gasa. And if that's the point where you were at the Afikomen stage, when it came to or the achilas matzah, you wouldn't be yoytze the mitzvah of matzah. Achila gasa is lo shmei achila. That's how. So that's what the Gemara says. It's interesting. Rashi doesn't seem to have that gears in the Gemara. When we get up to Kov Zayin, we'll see. Rashi just throws it. He says the word mishum matzah, and Rashi comments that you should eat it, or the Rashbam, you should eat it b'te'avon. You should eat it. You should have an appetite. It doesn't sound like an achila gasa issue. So here, the Rashbam. Correct, that it's mishum hiddur mitzvah. That's the point. That they don't have that. It seems like the reason why they don't harp on the achila gasa is because they don't have. It seems like they didn't have that girsa of achila gasa. It also could be there are two types of achila gasa. The Rashash points out. There's an achila gasa that we the way we use the term, that you're just not excited, you're not interested in really eating, but you'll eat. You're not disgusted by it, but it's not. You're not really. You don't have an appetite for it. So maybe that's the achila gasa that we're talking about here. That's a hiddur mitzvah Indian. That's a chavivas. A kitzer.
There's also a gap between eating.
Correct. There's two types of achila gasa. That's what the Rashash says. The Nekuda that I saw in the Birchas Avram, he makes the following ha'ara. If you look Rashi here when he's talking about eating matzah, he says, "Kadesh yechal matzah." The Rashbam says, "Matzah shel mitzvah l'te'avon mishum hiddur mitzvah." If you look a little further down in the Rashbams, when he talks about Reb Yehuda Shita, the first Rashbam on the Gemara, afilu arvei shabbosos, it's 2, 4, 5, 6 lines up from the bottom of the page. He says, afilu arvei shabbosos. Aliba de Reb Yehuda, kadesh ye kiddush v'suda Shabbos chaviv alav. That he should be looking forward to it. It should be chaviv. It should be something that he enjoys doing. It should be precious to him. It should be chaviv to him. So the Birchas Avram points out why Rashi changes his lashon here between chaviv and hiddur mitzvah. So he wants to, this is it's a darkest dekadia. It's maybe not. But he was saying that there's a difference. In something where there's a mitzvah achila like matzah, there's a mitzvah achila. So it's shaykh a lashon of hiddur mitzvah. You can be mahadir the mitzvah by doing it in a way that you have an appetite, that you're hungry for it. But when it comes to Suda Shabbos, it's not like there's no mitzvah achila. You don't make a bracha shekli shana mitzvah sivanu al achila Suda Shabbos. It's a mitzvah of Einik Shabbos, and one way you do that is through a Suda. So there's an inyan of chavivas hamitzvah. So you want to come into Shabbos with an appetite so that it's chaviv to you. But it doesn't pass the inyan of hiddur mitzvah. Hiddur mitzvah is when there's a mitzvah achila, then you can use a lashon of hiddur mitzvah. When it comes to that you're doing something and you want to do it in a nice way, so then you use a lashon of chaviv alav. Okay, so we got here so far. We have machlekes here, Reb Yehuda and Reb Yosi. Reb Yehuda holds that this halacha of lo yechal applies on every Shabbos, every Erev Yom Tov, and on Erev Pesach as well. And it's not necessary, not because of the matzah or the Pesach. It's just because of Suda Shabbos and the Kiddush should be chavav alav. And Rabbi Yosi does not agree with this. He holds that maybe we only make an iser achila when there's a mitzvah deraisa to be done. And therefore he holds it only passes on Erev Pesach. We only have this chi of this isra of loyechel on Erev Pesach, so you should eat the matzah shel mitzvah b'teyavei. Okay, so this is Rav Huna's way of getting out why Rabbeinu HaKadosh only mentions this halacha by Erev Pesach, because it's going like Rabbi Yossi. Okay, back to the Gemara. Rav Papa wants to say, you know what? I can tell you that it goes even according to Rabbi Yehuda. Says the Gemara, Rav Papa Amar, right, a little more than halfway down, Rav Papa Amar, Afilu Tema Rabbi Yehuda. I could tell you that the Tana of our Mishnah is even Rabbi Yehuda. So why does he only say this? Why does the Mishnah only relate this by Erev Pesach? So he says that there's a difference between the Isra Achila on Erev Pesach and the Isra Achila on Erev Shabbos and Yom Tov. And he makes a very strong diak in the Brisa. If you'll notice, our Mishnah says, Erev Pesachim Samach Lemincha. The Brisa that we quoted says, Arba Kosos V'Yom Tovim. It says, I'm sorry, Lo Yechal Adam Arba Kosos V'Yom Tovim Min HaMincha Ulamala. It leaves out Samach, which Rashbam says was a difference of a half hour. So it says like this. I feel time Rabbi Yehuda. Pasam ba'arba Kosos V'Yom Tovim Min HaMincha Ulamala Huda Aser. It's only Aser from Mincha and on. Samach Lemincha, the extra half hour shari is permitted. Avol ba'erev Pesach, afilu samach lemincha nam yasur. When it comes to erev Pesach, then even samach lemincha, the extra half hour, is also asur. All right, doesn't really answer Mati's kasha of why wouldn't you tell me this halacha in the Mishnah is in Shabbos or Beya? Okay. Ube'erev Pesach, practically Gemara, Erev Pesach samach lemincha shari. Is that really true? That samach lemincha is mutter? Maybe our brisa here was just not being meduyik. V'atani, we have another brisa that says mefurish. V'yechel adam erev Shabbos v'yom tovim mitesha shais ulamala. Kadeshi kanes l'Shabbos kishutava. You can't eat already from 9 hours onward, 9 hours into the day. Now, mincha pitana is 9.5 hours into the day. So samach lamincha katana would be 9 hours into the day. So this brisa that says explicitly 9 hours would hold that samach lamincha is already asur, and this is talking about an erev Shabbos and Yom Tov.
Why did they first bring this brisa to the challenge of the Mishnah? It's closer to the Mishnah. Like the reason that I've just said.
Good kasha. I don't know why you would bring one brisa over the other. Well, we'll see in good ha'ara. Maybe it's more similar in the fact that it talks about mincha as opposed to the hours. I don't know. It's a good kasha. I'm sorry? Correct. That's the point. Yeah, that's the problem. Meaning, you could the Gemara. So one of them is problematic. One of them is going to be an issue. That's the issue. Yes, that's the Gemara is going to address it momentarily. So, but the Gemara is saying that is meaning maybe the brisa we quoted originally wasn't so meduk. It said it says mincha. Okay, you can stretch in samach mincha maybe, but when it says teisha shois, there's no wiggle room. So the Gemara says that how could you tell me that samach lemincha is mutter according to Rabbi Yehuda? The brisa says lo yechal adam erev Shabbos yom tovim the teisha shois l'mala kishi kanes l'Shabbos kishutayv. The Rabbi Yehuda Yosef Mergalech Velch ad shetachshach. So you have a brisa that says that mitesha shois l'mala is asur. So Rav Papa wanted to say that maybe I can reconcile Rabbi Yehuda and his brisa and say there's actually a halachic difference between Erev Pesach and Erev Shabbos, and that's a difference of a half hour. And the Gemara is like, what are you talking about? This brisa maybe wasn't so meduk. We have a Mahrsha brisa that says Rabbi Yehuda holds from Teisha Shois also. There's no distinction between Erev Pesach and Erev Shabbos and Yom Tov. Says Mahrsha, 1 second, not so fast. I'm a Mahrsha. Whenever you're dealing with brisas didn't make the cut into Mishnayos. So to be, brisas are always a little sketchy, right? Meaning a brisa needs verification that this is an authentic brisa. and that this is like it's authentic. It's been an accepted brisa. Mishnayos were already verified. Brisas, not every brisa is a verified brisa. Remember, what are brisas? Brisas were teaching of Tanaim, and different Talmidim had different teachings, and they kept record of it, and that's all it was. So Rebbe, when he made Mishnayos, he went through all these different teachings that he had, all these different scribbles of papers that people had dafim of things that they heard from their Rebbe. He went through all. Then he codified Mishnayos. But not every brisa is verified. So Amar Zutra, man leimalon the metartzi. Maybe this brisa is not verified. Dilma tapakufa maral mishnabeshti. Maybe it's mishubish. Maybe it's a messed up brisa, and therefore you can't ask me a kasha. Maybe really what Rav Papa is saying is valid. There's actually a difference between Erev Shabbos and Erev Pesach, a difference of Samach L'Mincha and Mincha. And you're asking me a kasha from this brisa. Maybe this brisa is a mishnabeshti. You can't ask me a kasha one brisa to another brisa. Okay, you want to save Rav Papa, Marzucha? Amalei Meremar Vitema Rav Yemar. Meremar or Rav Yemar said, Ana, he actually is going to tell you that this brisa is actually verified. I heard this brisa is being verified. Ana, Ikloi le Pirkei de Rav Pinchas Breder Vami. I went to a shir, Pirkei is a shir of Rav Pinchas Breder Vami. The Kam Tana, and a Tana, doesn't mean a Tana, it means someone who was saying over brisas, got up. The Tani Kamei, and taught this brisa in front of him. The Kiblamine, and he accepted it. So this brisa that uses the hour of 9 hours as opposed to mincha is actually verified. If that's true, if you're telling what you're telling me is true, that this is a verified brisa, so then kasha, you're right. Then you wouldn't be able to answer that our mission is going like Rabbi Yehuda, and we have a kasha and a papa. El machvarta, so it's wider. Machvarta means it's wider. It's better to go like Rav Huna answered. Now, we're going at this stage. We're going to stop here in the Gemara. We're going to go like Rav Huna. Rav Huna said that our Mishnah is going like Rav Yosi, that there's no isser eating on Erev Pesach and Erev Shabbos. It's only on Erev Pesach and because of the chiyuv the matzah. Okay, good. Let's go back now and let's discuss some of these sugyas that we have over here. So let's start with the first one. Is what can't you eat on Erev Pesach? What are we talking about over here? Let's go to the second Taisus. Taisus says, a few lines down in the Taisus, he says, V'im timer. What is it that you can't eat? Now here from this Taisus, we get a very big halacha. Matzah. You're telling me there's an Isser Achila. What is that? What is that? What is it that I'm not allowed to eat? Matzah. If you want to tell me that the Bryce is saying that from Sabach Lemincha, you have to stop eating matzah. I feel koidim nami. Matzah, you can't eat a whole day. Kedamim b'Yushalmi. Koloicha matzah be'erev Pesach. Anyone who eats matzah on erev Pesach, ilu boil arusase bebeis chamav. It's like jumping the gun on your bride, on your kala. You know the halacha there. You have to remember that an arusa is a woman who you married. La halacha. She's married to you. You did kiddushin. In order to fully marry a woman, you have to do 2 steps. You need to do kiddushin and nisuin. Kiddushin is done through kesef. We do. You give a ring. The woman is now married and she's called an arusa. Right. So we do erisin and nisuin under the chuppah. Right. One after another. But back in the day, there was a year in between erisin and nisuin. So you went home. There was an isser. That's the bracha we make. Asher asur lanu es arusais. You're not allowed to be boil on arusa until you say sheva brachas. So yeah, arusa is asur to you. So someone who's boil arusas bebeis chamav, that means he jumped the gun. You couldn't wait until you brought her home. So that's someone who eats matzah on their Pesach. It's like he's buying arusasai. Just wait. Another couple of hours, you'll be able to eat matzah. So that's what the comparison is. But because of that, there's an isser. I heard years ago from, I forgot his name. Oh, he used to give a shir in. He's a Rav in YU. He used to give a shir in Shari. That's about from Goldvich. From Goldvich, I heard him from Goldvich say years ago. I said in the Rishonim say it. What's pshat? What's the comparison to Narusa? How many brachas do you need to say in order to be mutter to an arusa? We say shever brachas. So he says before we eat matzah, there are shever brachas that you have to make. There are 3 brachas in Kiddush. We make agafen, the bracha of Kiddush and a shachianu. We make a bracha b'rei pri adama on the karpas. Then we make an anal tia shadayim, an al achilas ha'moitzi lachem and arts, and an al achilas matzah. So there's 7 brachas and al tia shadayim, right? So there's 7 brachas between your until you're able to eat the matzah. So that's why that was the comparison to being boil arusasai. You didn't get shever brachas. Okay, but our kitzur, Teza says you can't eat matzah. So you could have said, oh, listen, maybe the Yerushalmi argues on the Bab. Maybe the Bab holds you allowed to eat the matzah. Teza assumes this is a truism. You can't eat matzah on Erev Pesach. Okay, so the halacha doesn't apply to that. So what else is there? Maybe you'll eat mini targima, fruits, vegetables, meat, chicken. So the Gemara says later on, mini targima. You're allowed to eat whatever you want. You're allowed to eat mini targima. So that you're allowed to eat. So what's the isser on? It doesn't mention chametz. Obviously, you already can't eat chametz from dalit chois, midiraisa from chatzos. So you can't eat. Like, what's the isser on? Everybody knows Erev Pesach. Everybody's hungry. So like, what's the Mishnah adding? Like, what's it talking about? So here's a big one. Avyesh loymar the ayri bematza ashira. We're talking about matzah ashira, egg matzah. Matzah ashira is when you put other ingredients into your matzah. So it's made with fruit juice. Matzah ashira means it's not just flour and water. If it's flour and fruit juice, so if you have water in there, then it becomes chametz. But if there's no water and it's just fruit juice or just eggs, so that's called matzah ashira. It's not chametz, but you can't be yotza the mitzvah of matzah with it. So the Yerushalmi el b'matzah haru'uya latas b'chavasei. When the Yerushalmi says you can't eat matzah, it's only matzah that you would have been fulfilled your mitzvah with. But matzah ashira, which you can't fulfill your mitzvah with, so that wouldn't pass the iser. So there, matzah ashira sharia v'chein hayin noig Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam would eat matzah ashira on Erev Pesach. There's a different girsais in what he would be noig. Some say that he would be noig on the Erev Pesach shechalius b'Shabbos. That's when he was noig to eat matzah ashira b'shal shuris. That's time we eat every Erev Pesach. Okay, so that's where it passes the lo yechal. That's Teisus Shita. That's just an order. Well, that could be on any. That could be regular bread.
So then, what's the question? Meaning, here we're saying that it's only that you can't eat matzah ashira. But I'm trying to make a comparison to other places where we're saying you can't eat. You
can't eat bread. I mean, here the point is just that there's always something to eat on Erev Shabbos and Yom Tov. Today's issue is you can't eat matzah. So now I'm stuck. What else are you going to eat? You can't eat chametz or matzah. So the whole issue doesn't pass. So Taisus say no, you're allowed to eat something that you can't be yotzer your mitzvah with. Now let me ask you. There's other things you can't be yotzer your mitzvah with. What happened? On what? What are you having a suda on? So fruit you're allowed to eat, Taisus says. Meat you're allowed to eat. So I'm stuck. So what about not shmur matzah? Non-shmur matzah. Can you fulfill your obligation of achilas matzah with non-shmur matzah on Lola Seder? No. So why can't we talking about like non-shmur matzah? Taisus calls it the next day. The Gemara calls it betzeka shel machrim. Betzeka, it wasn't made lishma. Why can't we talking about that? What? Could be. So Taisus, the Mahrsha asks this question. The Mahrsha says because it has the tam of matzah. So even though the lashon of Taisus is el b'matzah ru'uya lotis b'chavasai, says it doesn't mean, and it's not that specific. It doesn't just mean matzah you can't fulfill the obligation with. It means matzah that tastes like matzah you can't fulfill the obligation with. That's what the Mahrsha answers. Okay. I'll just tell you, Agav, the Rabbi Reuben, the Sultz Rebbe Zatzal, so he would eat he would eat, matzah, machine matzah. He'd eat matzah, he'd eat machine matzah for Rosh Chodesh. By Shalosh Shudas, he always ate machine matzah. So they asked him, Rebbe, there's a minhag. What about the minhag? Not to eat the matzah, before the Yom Tov. He says, yeah, but this is not. It's not matzah. This is by the part that has tam matzah. Nah, it doesn't have tam matzah either. Okay, that's one Indian. Let's talk about the next Indian. All right, we're going to jump to the taste of Achetachshach. Why are we adding in this extra word Achetachshach? Just say they can't eat on Erev Pesach. Why are you stressing Achetachshach until dark? The brisa that says on Erev Shabbos and Erev Yom Tif, there it doesn't mention Achetachshach. So why are we stressing Achetachshach in the Mishnah? So Taisa says because even if you were to be Mekabel Yom Tov early, which he says you're allowed to do, you would not be able to fulfill your mitzvah of matzah in the time of Tosefes Yom Tov. You would not be allowed to fulfill the mitzvah of matzah. Why not? Because he says the Karban Pesach has to be eaten at night. You can only fulfill the mitzvah of Karban Pesach at night because it says and matzah and maror are hukash. There's a hekesh. A matzah sumayr. A matzah. What is it supposed to? A matzah sumayr mechluhu. So there's a hekesh between Pesach, matzah, and maror. Just like the Karban Pesach has to be eaten at night, you would be able to eat. You have to eat the matzah at night as well. That's Tosfos' first teretz. So that's why I have to tell you, Achetachshach, even though you're allowed to, you can be Makabel Yom Tov early, but you can't eat matzah until it's actually dark outside. That's the first thing Tosfos first. That's the Rimi Korbil. On that, Tosfos gives another the second part of Tosfos. Tosfos brings another teretz from Rabbeinu Yehuda, and he says that it sounds like he holds that I would have thought that just like you're allowed to shech to Karban Pesach miba'od yom, so maybe you'd be allowed to eat you're allowed to eat it miba'od yom as well. Since Shchitas Pesach is early, so therefore maybe you'd be allowed to eat it miba'od yom like all the other other karbanos. And therefore, he has to tell you, no, you got to wait till nighttime. That's why the Mishnah is telling you, you got to wait till nighttime. That sounds like in Tosfos, there's a machlekes too. There's a machlekes in Tosfos whether you're allowed to be makabel, whether there's a halach of Tosfos, really Tosfos Shabbos and Yom Tov. It sounds like in the second teretz of Tosfos, he didn't like the first teretz because you can't be. There's no Indian of maybe Tosfos Shabbos would not help you for mitzvahs. And the first teretz of Tosfos holds no. If you would be makabel Yom Tov Shabbos early, you'd be allowed to fulfill. You should be allowed to fulfill the mitzvahs early, except that there's a hekesh that tells you that you can't do Pesach. You can't eat matzah early. Let me broaden this a little bit. There's a Tosfos in Ksubas that talks about the halach of ein ma'arvin simcha b'simcha. The Gemara is talking about a father marrying off his daughter, and the Gemara is trying to find the time when the father will marry off his daughter, and it won't be an issue of him taking her away from work. There can't be a bittul malacha. You can't take it, that he'd be able to marry off his daughter, and it wouldn't cause a bittul malacha. It wouldn't take her away from whatever work she's doing. Okay, so the Gemara says, you can marry her off on Yom Tov. So for Tosfos, what do you mean? There's an isser of ein ma'arvin simcha b'simcha. There's a mitzvah v'simachta b'chagecha, and there's a mitzvah of simcha eschas v'kala. So you're not allowed. You wouldn't be allowed to marry her on Yom Tov because ein ma'arvin simcha b'simcha. So Tosfos says, you know what? You married her off in Tosfos Yom Tov. You're makabel Yom Tov early, so now she's in any way not allowed to do any work, and then you married her off in that time. So it seems like Tosfos holds that you're not allowed to you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to. I'm sorry, that the Taisus holds that there's no mitzvah of Simchas Yom Tov in Taisus Yom Tov. Right, which means, I'm sorry?
Why are you allowed to make kossos in that case? That's with the law also.
For his daughter.
Yeah.
Good. I don't know. I'm not sure about that. But Taisus there says that you're marrying. Let's get this again. Taisus holds you're in this amount of Taisus Yom Tov, and you can marry her off. There's already Isser Malacha because it's Yom Tov, but there's no mitzvah of Simchas Yom Tov, and therefore there wouldn't be an issue of giving her over to her husband because you're not being mavatla from. There's no in ma'arvin simcha b'simcha because there's no mitzvah of Simchas Yom Tov. So this Taisus, the Achrein that yes, what do you mean? Taisus here says that if it wasn't for a special hekesh, you'd be allowed to eat your matzah on in Taisus Yom Tov. Let's think about this. Is when you're makabel Yom Tov early, is that a full Yom Tov? It's now 100% Yom Tov lagabe kedushas Yom Tov and lagabe Isser Malacha, or is it only lagabe the Isser Malacha? Seems like it's machlokes between maybe Rabbi Yehuda, the Rabbeinu Yehuda here in Taisus, or the Taisus in Ksubas and the Taisus here. Our Taisus here holds if it wasn't for the hekesh, you'd be allowed to eat your matzah. This when you're makabel Yom Tov early, it's not just that I'm not doing malacha. It's like I'll be Isser Malacha. It actually is a full-fledged Yom Tov, and you should be able to makayim all the mitzvahs in Yom Tov now. There's a mitzvah of Simchas Yom Tov now too. There's a hekesh that says you can't eat your matzah, you can't eat your matzah early. Taisus and Ksubas holds, the mitzvah of Taisus Yom Tov, the Indian of Taisus Yom Tov only is in regard to the Isser Malacha. But lagabi, the Kedusha of Yom Tov, the Kedusha of Yom Tov only happens a little bit later. Okay, another idea. I want to give you one more piece of data that my father mentioned there. That was my
you're waiting in shul different than on Shabbos when you started in Utus Shabbos, where you will, you can make kiddush.
Yeah, because maybe yes, just like on Pesach, we got to wait till it's dark to make the mitzvahs of the Seder. So Shavuos needs tmimus, that's a different reason. And Pesach, Sukkot is because it's Sukkot to Pesach. You need to have your achila in the Sukkah. Correct. Now, I want to jump to one other Indian here, and that was the diak on the Mishnah lo yifchesu loy. It sounds, if you take a look at the Taisus, the second Taisus, lo yifchesu loy mi Arba Kosos. The halach of Arba Kosos, Taisus here says, mitoich haloshin mashma ktsas she'ein noisten labanav b'nei beisai. You don't have to give this ani dalet kosos for his family. You only have to give for he himself and not for his kids. Ki im la'atzmai. V'hu moitzi es kulam b'shaloi, and he could be moitzi the whole mishpacha with his dalet kosos. And he says, v'svarahu. That makes sense. Demai shna Arba Kosos mekiddush the kol hashana. Why should Arba Kosos be different than kiddush a whole year? A kiddush a whole year, you can make kiddush on one cup of wine. Not everybody needs their own kos. So for dalet kosos, it should be the same thing. It should be the same thing for dalet kosos. And Taisus goes through it back and forth, brings some rayas, and then at the end of Taisus he says, "V'nira lahach mamash," the last line of Taisus, "Lahatzrich Arba Kosos lakol echad." He holds not really. You should have everybody should have their own kos, and therefore you should make sure the kos is in pagam. Okay, so we have 2 days in Taisus, whether or not everybody needs their own kos for dalet kosos. Or you can be mitzi one, can one person have a kos and everybody else not have a kos? So what could be such a machlokes here between in these 2 days in Taisus? So let's take as one specific way. We'll take one dalet kosos to halacha, and one will go another approach, which is a more shemei ka'ina to halacha. So let's go with dalet kosos first. How do you view the mitzvah, the takana of dalet kosos? Is it a pshat that there are 4 ideas that were instituted here for dalet kosos? There are like 4 brachas that are, there are 4 concepts that we have in the Seder. and Chazal, to give a chashivas to those 4 ideas, instituted they should be done ala kais. So we have Kiddush, we have Haggadah, we have Birchas Hamazon, and we have Hallel. Is the pshat that we have these 4 nyanim that we're doing at the Seder, and Chazal wanted to make these so they instituted that these 4 ideas should be done ala kais. Or is the pshat that Chazal wanted you to feel chayris at the Seder, so they instituted you should drink 4 cups of wine. Oh, now where should you drink these 4 cups of wine? Oh, so listen, there are lots of things going on at the Seder, so we'll take each one of these cases of yain and put them at a different part of the Seder. So we can say that the first part of Taisus holds that this is like Kiddush. Kiddush is no, Kiddush is a mitzvah to be Mekadesh Shabbos. To the extent that the Minchas Chinuch holds that Rabbi Kiveger, the Magen Avraham, the Tumul, that be'etzim Yetzer Kiddush in Shemona Esrei. So I'll institute it, you should say Kiddush al Yayin. But the Iker is to say Kiddush. So just like the Iker is to say Kiddush, the Iker is to say Kiddush on the night and to say the Haggadah. And what I have to be mitzi is people at the Suda, they don't need their own kais. A kais is like an extra zach. They just need to be yaitza, the concept that I'm doing. So they could be yaitza by me doing it. 1 cup of wine would be good enough. That's one way to look at it. That's how Taisus started off. And Taisus on this end is at the end near Lahakmer saying, no, the ikar of the Daled Kaisis is the Daled Kaisis. And everyone needs to drink 4 cups of wine. And they found a place to put these kaisis of wine. That's 2 ways to look at the Indian of Daled Kaisis. That's one way to look at the machlekes in the Taisus. I'll give you one other way, and that is, how does Shemei Ka'ina work? We know we do lots of things with Shemei Ka'ina. Shemei Ka'ina means that someone can say something and I'm yaitza with them saying it. How does that work? Is it the pshat that I'm yaitza through their dibur? That by them saying it, their dibur is connected to me? But it's their dibur that I'm being yaitza through? Or is it my shmiya? Is it because I hear what they're saying and my hearing is like a dibur? How does Shemei Ka'ina work? Is it that I'm connecting to the person's dibur, to what they're saying, or is it that my hearing is like I'm saying it? If the pshat is that I'm connecting to that person's dibur, so if that person who's doing the dibur has a kaisa yayin, so then that could work for me too. He's doing it in the optimal way. He's doing the dibur, whatever he's doing it on a cup of wine. So his dibur on a cup of wine connects to me.
You don't have to hear it.
You have to, well, the way you connect is through hearing it. But it's not that's the way you would connect to him, is through hearing his dibur. But it's really that his dibur is as if I can transfer his dibur to me. It's his speech that I'm being yaitza with. If that's the case, then his cup of wine would suffice. I wouldn't have to give a cup of wine to everybody else. The other way of saying it is not that I'm using his dibur, but my hearing suffices. The fact that I hear it suffices as if I said it. If that's the case, then my hearing suffices. Then it's my hearing that's being yaitza. Then I need to have a cup of wine because it's my bracha. It's just that usually you need to say it. Here, the fact that I'm hearing it is considered a dibur, so then I would need to hear it with a cup of wine as well. So therefore, I would need to hear it. According to that l'chayra, if you hold like the second shot, then by Kiddush Friday night, if you're being good to a Shemei Ka'ina, then l'chayra you also would need to have a kais to be yet to a Shemei Ka'ina. Okay.
You hold the coast, you wouldn't be making the bracha.
Correct. And you should know, I've been in the shul in Mount Kisco before Kiddush. Shabbos morning, everybody takes a cup. Everybody holds a cup when I make it. It was such a fascinating thing. Everybody held a kais. Everybody filled up a cup of wine or whatever was grape juice at the Kiddush, and everybody held it while I made Kiddush. So they held like this chazanish. All right, good. I'm going to stop over here, and then Mitzvah Shem tomorrow 9 p.m. we will continue. There will be there's a meet link. You can join on Google. I put it in the WhatsApp. If you're not on the WhatsApp group, look at the Nishmas group. You can join the group, and I will. I'm recording it also, so I will mention some post a recording of this.
Yeah, he's smart. He just sent all his family members to go to the person to collect stuff himself.